Welcome to Roots and Rishte, a podcast focused on all things South Asian mental health.
We are your co-hosts, two psychologists in the field who are also work besties, wanting to invite you to join us as we speak about patterns and dynamics we see in our clinical work.
We want to have the serious conversations, the topics which are taboo and whispered about, but we also want to celebrate the joys and wins that we experience on a daily basis.
There will be practical applications we hope you can implement in your day-to-day life, which is not like your typical auntie's advice. And just a quick disclaimer, this podcast is for educational purposes only. It does not constitute as a therapeutic relationship or therapeutic advice. Should you want to work with us, please reach out. Welcome to Roots and Rishte podcast. Today, we're going to be discussing Southeast Asian mental health in men. Hi, Simrat.
Hi, Ambreen. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. We're excited for this topic. Yeah.
It's so personal, right? Like it is, I think this topic is so close to my heart, in particular, because I'm raising two boys.
Yes, and I am also raising two boys. And so I agree. This feels like a very important and timely conversation to be having. Yeah. And once again, just kind of tying it back into our clinical work, I think it's something that we are starting to see more in the clinical work. It's something that I'm definitely starting to see more in the couples that I work with as well, just men and mental health, and sort of particularly in our community, and just the implications of life on them, right?
I also just want to say that, I have a handful of Southeast Asian men that I'm working with on in therapy one-on-one. And I want to just say, like, every time that I have a Southeast Asian male client that is like come in for therapy and is like working on bettering himself and, just kind of working through his things and all of that, I have to say I do a little bit of a happy dance. Yeah. Because this means that we're moving so far as a society when we were so far behind just a couple of years ago.
If I can word that differently a little bit, when I get a Brampton boy come to my clinic, I get so excited because they are coming with this like openness to grow and learn more about themselves. And a lot of times it's wanting to just be a better version of themselves for the people around them. And yeah.
Which is just incredible. It's incredible, right?
Yes. Yeah. So when we think about the men, to think about the men, we got to start thinking about the boys, right? Yeah. And just kind of thinking about upbringing and societal cultural expectations on boys. And like the first one that comes to mind is boys don't cry.
Right.
Just that narrative of boys don't cry.
Right. And that is the very beginning of what that messaging is around boys don't share feelings. Boys don't have feelings. Boys are not to express feelings, right? That, and I get this a lot too. Like, I think our grandmothers have said it, our mothers have said it. Oh, they're just men. That's why they behave this way. Or they just, like, it's so many excuses for just aggressive behavior, violent behavior, all of these things that are actually just not okay.
Yeah. And it's almost like, with like going to that generational expectation, it's almost like, well, it's your job as kind of like the woman in the family to navigate the anger or to navigate the whatever it is.
To walk on the eggshells, right?
Yes,
like you are on eggshells. Like, let's not diminish what is actually happening, right? Because you are now taking responsibility for somebody else's emotions that is just not your responsibility.
Yeah. But if we even think about kind of where these emotions are coming from, right? Like, they're probably coming from a lot of hurt or upset or sadness or like just the suppressive everything, right? So boys don't cry, like you said, it's a messaging of keep it all in. Like, whatever it is that you're feeling, keep it in because we don't express it, right? We don't express the tears. We don't express the weakness.
Right. And I think, it starts so young, but we also have to understand that while it starts so young, there's so much history behind this too, right? Like, men historically have been viewed as the breadwinners. Men historically have been viewed as those that are supposed to be tough and keep the family together. And they're the man of the house, right? Yeah. Or like sons, for example, like the narrative becomes that if they lose their father, they are now the man of the house.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And this is like giving a lot of responsibility where it's not necessarily their place to give that responsibility or take that responsibility, right?
And it goes generations through generations, right? And so these men that we're talking about, their fathers have also grown up with the same messaging, and their fathers have also kind of grown. So it's something that just kind of passes on. And so they kind of, the potential role models around them are ones that are more stoic, or they express, when they do express, it's expressed through the anger, for example, or the numbness through like alcoholism, for example, which is so prominent.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And, we then start to engage in these maladaptive coping strategies and basically just excuse them to being able to say like, hey, this is just what men do. This is how men deal.
Yeah.
Right. And, we were even talking about this, right? Like there is actually an epidemic of loneliness amongst men because they don't have the space, the camaraderie, or the people to share their heart with.
Yeah. And I think what the research is kind of showing with that loneliness is a lot of times that kind of happens in fatherhood. And so once these men are kind of married and they're in their families and they have children, they tend to isolate. So while women often will kind of find other moms or they'll be able to kind of connect on it, there's something that's happening with the men where they're not able to connect in the same way, or they're not able to maintain the relationships that they've had in the same way.
Right. Like so much isolation, so much just to themselves, right? Like it's so isolating for them.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just because life is lifing, right? Like they are working their hours and then they come home and there's things to do at home, or they're numbing themselves, like whatever. It's a lot of times it's not even intentional. It's just like life is lifing.
This has just become the routine.
Exactly. And then they like you open up your eyes 5 years later and you look around and it's like, oh, 1 minute, who's around me anymore, right? Like who do I actually talk to?
Right. Let's talk a little bit about the toll that some of this takes, right? The toll that it takes on families, the toll that it takes on the men themselves, right? We know in families, for example, we know that it creates an emotional distance, right? Like there's many clients that we work with that talk about like the lack of being unable to connect to their fathers, right? But more importantly, on the men's side, wanting a connection and not having it.
Yeah.
Right? Like not knowing how to get it. Like it's also like not having the pathways, the tools, the resources to understand what they need to change.
Yeah. Because a lot of times kind of asking for what you need is asking, you're in a space of vulnerability, right? And the messaging is don't be vulnerable, don't be soft, like kind of keep a hard sort of shell around you at all times. And so exactly, it's hard to ask for, and it's also kind of, hard to get as well in certain dynamics.
Right. And, and I think there's this like added layer of responsibility around like, you figure it out. You are the man of the house. So you figure it out. It's your decision, right? And it's like being in that role of being that sole decision maker, all of the possibilities of the right decision, wrong decision, everything falls on you, right? When in actuality, there's so many pieces of this where your partner may be open to sharing with you. Your partner may be open to supporting you, but we just don't know how.
Yeah. And even kind of like navigating the different relationships in your life, right? And so like we were talking a little bit earlier, there is like when, in the past, maybe to some degree still currently, there's sort of like the boy's birth is very much celebrated, right? And part of that is because there was that idea that boys are easier to raise, or there's also this sort of like they're going to stay in the family, right? Girls, like have the girls and then they're going to get married and move into their own family with their like their new parents, and like they're going to leave us, but the son is going to stay. And the son staying puts a lot of responsibility in terms of the, like what does staying mean, right? Is it providing for taking care of your parents? How do you navigate that while also sort of like finding your own sense of fulfillment and autonomy while also having you potentially your own family, wife and children as well?
Right. And like navigating that sense of responsibility too, right? Like everything is always constantly on you. Everything is constantly always like your burden to solve, and that's the other piece to this is like not knowing how to share those pieces, right? Like not knowing how to share that with your partner, not knowing how to share that or set those boundaries with your mom or your dad or whatever it is, right? I even think about this from this perspective of like, how we're trying to make those changes, right? And I know I've shared with you, like, again, I've shared, like I have 2 boys, right? But like even in that sibling dynamic, right? Like the older child is always expected to be the one that also kind of is a pseudo parent of
Yeah,
sorts, right?
yeah.
And intentionally, I actually have these conversations. And my children are so young.
Mhm,
They're so
mhm,
young. And I
mhm,
have these
mhm.
conversations with them where if my older one is trying to, tell the younger one what to do or
Yeah.
like trying to give a consequence for something that they should not have done or whatever,
Yeah.
I actually have to have that conversation with them that's, hey, listen, that's not your responsibility. It's
Yeah.
not your responsibility to parent your younger brother. It's your responsibility to be his brother, right? To be a support.
Yeah.
But I'm his mom. Dad's his dad,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? We're
And
here. We're here to do that.
yeah, and that's exactly what you're showing him, right? Or you're telling him, and over the years, he'll understand that that's not his burden to
Right.
have to carry, right? Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And I think when we talk about, some of the clients that we work with and not knowing how to navigate emotions and feelings and all of that, I think it's because they never had an opportunity to, right? It's not a fault of theirs,
Mhm.
but there was never that opportunity for them to learn the skill set, or there was never that openness of emotional intelligence in the house,
Right.
right? Or that idea, like, if a kid was angry, like, oh, they're just angry, right?
Mhm.
We know that anger is not anger, right?
Right.
Anger presents as a primary, but it's a secondary emotion. And so, what's underneath the anger? That's where the sadness, the loss, the hurt, the embarrassment, whatever it is that they're
Yeah.
experiencing.
Yeah. And I think that's the other piece, right? Like we're coming from this aspect of like we have two boys and they're
Mhm.
young and we're teaching this from such an early age, right? But like that's exactly it. Like we're giving language
Yeah.
to something that a lot of like our husbands and our dads and all of that were never exposed to, right?
Mhm.
Like my
Mhm.
children can tell you that they're frustrated, that they're
Mhm.
angry, that they're sad, that they're this. And I'm like, that's
Yeah.
great. Like I want to see you express your wide range of emotions and I'm happy to give you the tools to do so. But that's something that our husbands, our dads, our grandfathers were never
Mhm.
privy to,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah. So once again, they didn't get that opportunity to learn it. The great thing though is that through parenting, there is an opportunity to learn it now,
Yeah.
or through relationships, or just a personal desire to kind of learn some of this. But I'm like, once again, thinking about some of the male clients I work with, and when we start like connecting the dots, or we start connecting some of like the trauma responses, for example, the amount of aha moments that I have with those clients, like, it surpasses, like, another kind of client, generally speaking. It's like, "Oh my god, I never thought of that," or like, "Oh my god, that's so true," or "That makes so much sense." Like,
Mhm.
there's so many aha moments that if they're given the opportunity to make those connections, and they
Yeah.
have the willingness to want to,
Yeah.
like, you can really start to learn who you are, why your patterns of behavior are the way that they are, right?
Yeah. And I think to expand on that, right? Like that actually then starts this process of integrating those like aha moments into your
Mhm.
life. And like suddenly now you're finding that, oh, this thing that once used to be really challenging is
Yeah.
not actually my burden to take on anymore, right? Like
Mhm.
you're able to actually set boundaries. You're able to actually like have better relationships, more meaningful connections because you're actually able to share, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's this misconception of sharing too, right? Like I hear this with a lot of men too. It's like, what's the point of sharing? No one's actually listening. Or what's the point of sharing, like, if nothing's actually going to change, right?
Mhm.
But the thing is like sometimes when we're sharing, it's not actually because we expect the other person to agree to everything we're going through, right? Because we have to remember it's supposed to be a collaboration of
Yeah.
sorts, right? So it's
Yeah.
being able to hold your emotion and being able to hold the other person's emotion and allowing both to exist even if they are not aligned.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. It's about opening up space, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't always have an action step. I mean, ideally, if it needs to, like, an action step will happen, but it's about opening space,
Yes.
which once again is something that so many do not grow up
Yeah.
with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with you though. That's something I'm so intentional about with my boys, and like even parent teacher interviews. Like when I sit down, like my first question is like, how is he doing socially? How
Mhm.
is he doing emotionally? And like a lot of times the teachers are not expecting that. Like they're kind
Yeah.
of like, but I'm like, no, he's 5, he's 6, right? Like we'll get to the reading, we'll get to the writing, but like I need to like I want to know how is
Mhm.
he doing socially and emotionally.
And this is the other thing. Like I'll have my 4-year-old, like right now we're going through a phase of like acting out at school and like,
Mhm.
being impulsive, name calling in a very 4-year-old capacity.
Mhm,
Like I want to be
mhm,
very clear
mhm.
about that, very 4-year-old capacity. And, I think the conversations that I'm having with his school are like, okay, well, what tools can we give?
Yeah.
Like, how can we support this, right? Like, I don't want this to become a piece where we're only talking about the behavior and we're
Mhm.
not talking about how to address it.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's the other problem. Like, that's great. Like, we get this all the time where, so you go to parent teacher interviews, oh, this kid talks too much, or this kid does this too much, or this too much. Or this too much. I'm like, that's great that you notice that. That's great. But now what?
Yeah.
Right? Because that's where the real work begins, right? Like, then that means like we need to give tools. We need to talk about tools. What are those tools?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And like even kind of like within the family dynamic, like in case there's like mom and dads listening to this who are also raising sons and they're kind of like, how can we raise emotionally intelligent boys? I think part of it is also the repair that happens. And so as parents, we're all going to make mistakes, right? And we're all going to mess up and kids are going to have their tantrums as well. Like it's not perfect. It's very messy, very messy, very chaotic. But the repair is always so helpful, right? And so if like I lose my temper, for example, or if I'm dismissive of their emotions and they have a big reaction, the repair always happens at some point. Once everybody's a little bit regulated, it's always like, hey, what's going on? Like, what's going on, right? Or it's that idea of connection over correction. Like you hug them. You just hug him. And the hug is saying, I'm here for you and you have space for whatever it is.
Right. Yeah. Or I even do this piece where it's like, the apology, right? Like there are things that I know that as a parent, I'm like, I didn't like how I behaved here. I didn't like how I behaved here or whatever it is. But I will go back to them and I will say, listen, I'm really sorry for this. I should not have done this. I'm trying to do this differently. How are you feeling? Right? Like, and my kids are 4, almost 3.
Yeah.
This is not going to be like a really in-depth conversation at this point.
Yeah.
But I think it sets a precedence and the tone for in the future to have those meaningful and depthful conversations, right? Because I'm not waiting to have them.
Yeah.
I'm talking about it now. I'm saying it now. I can acknowledge my shortcomings now. I'm not supposed to be perfect.
Yeah. It can be really uncomfortable for some parents to apologize, especially with dads. I've seen that. It can be like kind of like, whoa, why do I have to apologize? Like the kid's the one who was acting up but then that's where that emotional intelligence kind of comes, right? They're acting up for a reason. Like they're not acting up just for the sake of acting up usually, right? Like there's something behind it.
And it's also that reminder of sometimes like we have to listen to our kids, right? Like there's this piece about this, like sometimes behaviors look like outrageous on the surface, but actually underneath they're very simple, right? And they might just be about connection, or they might just be about like wanting a one-on-one time with something, right? And so we sometimes need to understand the intention around something before actually understanding, the behavior around it, right? And like this is for children. So in some ways, like, it's interesting, right? Because with children, there's a lot of like how-tos. There's a lot of like, information out there about like, raising children and whatever. And even still, like we can feel like ill-equipped to handle, right? But then what do we do about like the men in our life, right? Or, the men that we know that haven't had those experiences, right? Like my husband is learning this along with me as we're going along, right? He's doing great.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. We're learning this along the way.
Yeah. I think in that, I don't know if there's like a complete answer to that, but I think one of the things is like almost kind of like the role modeling of it, right? And so like if like say a partner has a little bit more emotional intelligence, or they're able to just kind of like they've been able to express emotions a little bit more adaptively throughout their lives, just even kind of like role modeling that, like, hey, I'm feeling really upset right now. Like I need to step away for 5 minutes, right? Or I need to take a moment for myself, as opposed to like I'm thinking of like a partnership right now, like a marriage, for example, as opposed to just kind of like walking away and not talking and stonewalling.
Yeah. And actually offering the explanation, right? Like, hey, I'm not leaving you on red here, right? Like I'm actually just taking a minute and I'm going to process my emotions, I'm going to process my thoughts, and I'm going to come back and respond, right? Like it's actually about building communication and not stonewalling.
Yeah. In the couples work, one thing that I notice is a lot of times, like it's even about teaching the partner, so not just the guy who's there, but also kind of the partner as well, in terms of like this isn't necessarily something that he's not like that he doesn't want to do. It's something that maybe he's just never had to do before or doesn't know how to do. So it's that idea of like, oh, this person doesn't care about me because of whatever the behavior is. And then the guy will kind of be like, no, what are you talking about? Like, I love you. Like, I care so much about you. And so it's like, okay, well, let's talk about where this behavior is coming from, right? And kind of building it up. So even kind of like building up that understanding, and it's not an excuse, right? But building up that understanding within the dynamics.
Right. It's like having those conversation starters, right? Like it's opening up that conversation, opening up that door to, exploring how things can be different, right? Because I think that's the other thing is a lot of our husbands, for example, can recognize, in some ways that like maybe some of the things that they brought up with are not necessarily the healthiest way for them to cope, right? But they don't have the tools,
Yeah.
right? And so part of that opening up that door of communication allows for us to explore those tools.
And so when we look at kind of the idea of masculinity and what more sort of like emotionally healthy masculinity could look like, right? Like one of the things that comes to mind is that idea like vulnerability is courageous, right? And a lot of times the messaging is that it's weakness or you're soft, right? But there's so much courage that can come with having a sense of vulnerability. And vulnerability sometimes is accepting or even acknowledging your shortcomings, right? I need help with this, or I struggle with this, or this is hard for me.
Yeah. And I think it's also as partners, as like mothers, as daughters, as all of those things, I think our job in this is really to validate that. I don't know that it's our like solution to find. I think it's our job to validate. It's to support, right?
Yeah.
It's to be able to recognize like, yeah, I agree with you. This is really hard, right? And this has been really tough. I'm here for you.
Maybe to provide like a soft landing spot, right? So it's not repeating the pattern of like invalidating or dismissing or ignoring, but it's allowing.
And it's not even just to say like, that sucks, you figure it out, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just to be able to say like, yeah, you're right. It is hard, right? I may not have the answers, but you're right.
Yeah. And connection and communication and kind of being able to feel your feelings. Like when we kind of think of like the new sort of like, once again, the healthier masculinity, like that's what comes in mind because these men are potentially going to be role models for their children if they have children, right? Boys and girls, right? Girls are also looking up to their fathers and they are also seeing what their fathers are doing and not doing and the relationship between their parents and like they're seeing it all and they kind of learn like, okay, this is not okay.
This is what we have to let go. This is what we have to accept, right?
Yeah. And if something that's very maladaptive becomes normalized, that also becomes like that has implications for the children.
Yeah. And I think about this from this angle too. Like having two boys. It's not to say that having girls is not a responsibility, but I think having two boys, there's equally just as much responsibility. Like we are responsible for making sure that we're giving access to these kinds of like emotional conversations, that we're giving access to these kinds of spaces to feel the emotions and things like that. Because, we do have the responsibility of helping our children grow into these men that can express their emotions, that can make healthier choices, right? Like, and that's a big responsibility.
Yeah. We're raising men that we want them to be like good husbands and good fathers and, like in healthy and fulfilled sort of in their own sort of sense.
To be honest, we're also raising men that are going to feel comfortable enough to set boundaries with us in the future, right? And I want that. I welcome that.
Yeah. What do you mean you don't want to live with me forever? I get it. But it's true. It's true. Yeah.
So I think this is the other thing. Like I've seen that when we create these open spaces, this is where that therapy can be so powerful, right? Like therapy can be so impactful for a lot of these like men that are coming in because they now have that soft landing spot to then think and grow and expand on a skill set.
Yeah. And if for therapy for some reason doesn't feel accessible or it's not something a person's willing to do, like even finding a brotherhood or role models around you where you can look at that person and be like, yo, I really like how he carries himself, or I really like the way that he is with whatever it is, with his job or with his family, with his parents, and really kind of like being like, yo, what's up? Right? Like what do you do? How do you do it? And kind of surrounding yourself with the people that you want to be more like.
Absolutely. Right. So the Not Your Auntie's advice here is
feel your feelings.
Yeah.
And it's not too late to start.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is as well, right? So we all have behaviors that have over our course of our lives, they've like sort of solidified for different reasons, but we can always work with them, right? We can always like change them, make them more adaptive. Before like shutting down was an adaptive sort of response that these little boys were having, because if they were expressive, they would be told to like stop being expressive, or like they were shut down by external forces. So shutting themselves down became an adaptive force. Over time, that became maladaptive. But you can learn ways to kind of,
absolutely
make it healthy again.
Absolutely, right? Like be in that space of like learning healthier ways to cope, right? Like for yourself, for your future generations, for all of that, right? Like there is actually a huge implication here of like, sitting with some of this and like allowing for that change to happen.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's challenging to want to do it for yourself, or people may not see the benefit of doing it for themselves. I'm the way I am, it's fine. Like I'm okay with it. But when they look at it through the eyes of a younger generation or through the eyes of their daughter or their son, that incentive becomes a little bit more
Absolutely.
prominent, right? Because it's like, okay, there's a reason for me to want to just be a little bit better. And I mean, this episode was focused on men, but that is something that we are all navigating. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for joining us today.